Gas fit exam cram session, video 27. Okay, question 36. Service piping is all fuel gas piping valves and fittings upstream of the point of delivery. Okay, so this is a finer point, finer dimension to the service and the boundaries that delineate us from the utility. Okay, we established that if this is a grade, cellar, main, service, we go up into our meter set, and then we have the distribution piping. All right, at this point, this is the distribution piping. The distribution piping, and piping we mean the pipe itself, valves, fittings. The distribution piping is from the outlet of the meter. So this is the point of delivery. Delivery from whom? The utility. So, just that alone, we can infer that upstream from the point of delivery, because this is the flow, so upstream from the point of delivery, going against the flow, all of this belongs to the utility, and the utility is saying not just the gas service coming in, but all the piping from the gas service up to the point of delivery is the service. So service piping. So all of this, because this will be the main. So all of this is the service. Not just what we term the service when we're talking about getting the pipe in, making sure we have the supply control valve, and then going into the meter set, but technically everything right up to the outlet of the meter, point of delivery, and then downstream from that, going in the flow, so downstream from the point of delivery, everything else is the distribution piping. That's our concern. Okay. Question 37. Appliances, equipment, and systems regulated by the New York City Fuel Gas Code shall not be located in an elevator shaft. This also goes for any plumbing, except maybe in the plumbing code, one of the first things they start talking about is you shall not run any plumbing in an elevator shaft. The only thing you're allowed in the elevator shaft is at the bottom, maybe something to take care of a stoppage or whatever. That's about it. But the piping itself, you cannot run in the elevator shaft. And turns out you're not allowed to run systems. So piping is the systems and the appliances or equipment. Nothing related to the fuel gas system in an elevator shaft. Can we have it in a cellar? Of course we can have it in the cellar. We can have it in a basement. That's where you usually stick the boiler, right? And what about a vault? A vault would be, I would say it would be any space, any space with, we could say, in-ground or a heavy man-made concrete space. A vault, like let's say you put it underground and it's going to be maybe a catch basin, or it's going to house electrical equipment, etc., stuff like that. Well, any vault in the ground, in the street, no fuel gas piping. So, of course fuel gas piping, because the vault would be space, probably with a manhole cover for access that you could maybe they would house a valve or something, some kind of a station there So you can have it in the vault. Nothing in the elevator shaft. Question 38. Appliances shall not be located in bathrooms, toilet rooms, storage closets, surgical rooms, or you might be able to guess this one because we just got done talking about no appliances except for a direct vent appliance with an interlocked carbon monoxide detector and automatic main gas shutoff valve. So sleeping rooms, bedrooms, sleeping rooms. No appliances in the sleeping rooms. Okay? Except for that one exception, of course. So let's look at the other choices we had. Can we have appliances in the kitchen? Of course. The range is in the kitchen. Can we have it in the living room? You might want to put the fireplace there, right? The gas-fired fireplace with a gas pilot, right? Can we have it in a garage? Sure. Lots of places. You'll stick the water heater in the garage, right? The clothes washer and the dryer. The dryer is gas. You'll stick it in the garage, right? But not in a sleeping room. The main concern is the carbon monoxide. Secondary concern is fire. Okay. So, and from the question itself, we can add bathrooms, toilet rooms. Toilet room, bathroom kind of go together. Storage closets, surgical rooms. No gas appliances in those. Question 39. Every appliance shall bear an affixed factory nameplate with the manufacturer's name, model number, serial number, testing agency, type of fuel, minimum clearances, and the hourly rating in BTUs. Okay? Hourly rating in BTUs per hour. Remember, we had established that how are we going to determine the amount of gas needed? Well, the appliance was going to determine that. Just like in a plumbing system, the fixture unit of a fixture was going to determine eventually the total fixture unit load of any section of the sanitary piping. Same thing, we said the appliance itself, its demand, its hourly rating in BTUs per hour is what determines the piping that we're going to send. It determines the gas we're going to need. Okay? So, where would you find that? On the nameplate. There should be some kind of nameplate, some kind of manufacturer's sticker, nameplate, whatever, fixed to the unit, to the appliance. It's going to give you all that information. Manufacturer's name, model number, serial number, that's standard. Testing agency. These appliances have to be third-party certified. Okay? Third-party certified, third-party tested. Who was the third party? You got third parties like, for example, Underwriters Laboratories. You probably see their sticker on a lot of stuff in the house. So that information is important because you cannot use any kind of materials for your plumbing, gas systems, whatever, unless it's been approved by the Board of Standard and Appeals. Board of Standard and Appeals, well then they depend on the manufacturer going to a third-party certification, getting that kind of certification, so to get the approval of a Board of Standard and Appeals. All of that is signified by the nameplate. Type of fuel, sure, it makes a huge difference. Are you using oil? Are you using gas? Are you using propane? Big difference. Minimum clearances, yes. Where can you put this unit? And since we're dealing with, in our case, we're dealing with fuel gas. That's combustion, that's heat, it's a flame. You need air flow. How do you get that air flow? Lots of times you look at the plate, they'll tell you, do not place closer to wall than 6 inches or whatever. They'll say allow a certain amount of clearance from any wall, etc., top or whatever. You need airflow. Okay. Also, you want to avoid any excessive heat. And As far as deciding just how much gas we're going to need, which will help us decide what the piping is, hourly rating in BTUs. 40. A vent connector shall be installed without drips or sags and shall slope upward toward the vent or chimney at least 1/4 of an inch per foot. So, as far as wet gas piping was concerned, we said 1/4 of an inch every 15 feet. Now, a vent connector. What is a vent connector? A vent connector is coming off the flue. It's duct work, duct piping, coming off the flue and going to the chimney. So, the vent itself, in this case, because we have spoken about vents off the regulators, but the vent here is, let's say we have our furnace. It's got its flue, okay? But now, and then, of course, we're going to pipe it to the chimney, right? So over here, we will have our flue pipe that travels up the chimney. We have the flue off the furnace. Okay, so the vent connector is this section. This section here, this ductwork here that will go from the hood, draft hood, the flue will connect to the chimney. This piece here is your vent connector. So you're going to want to pitch it upwards. Okay, one, to make sure, you know, it's a flue gas, it's a carbon monoxide and other byproducts of combustion. Air rises. Two, the byproduct of combustion is water, so any moisture can drip back. So the pitch for this is going to be 1/4 of an inch. Again, the pitch 1/4 of an inch, but per foot. So the only difference is when we're pitching wet gas lines, 1/4 of an inch every 15 feet. When we're pitching the vent connector, 1/4 of an inch every foot. So flue pipe, horizontal flue pipe has to be pitched. And anything that's anything that we consider less than 45 degrees is horizontal. Anything that's greater than 45 degrees is vertical. So vertical is vertical, you're good. But anything below 45 degrees, so just for the sake of argument, 44 degrees, it's got to be pitched. So 1/4 of an inch per foot. Anything like 44 degrees is considered horizontal, got to have pitch, right? At least 1/4 of an inch per foot. Let's see, question 41. All right, this one here, I put in myself, only because as I'm going through the appliance chapter, there wasn't a lot of stuff that struck out, but I did see this one little sentence with a number. I'm obsessive. I obsess on the numbers, and I thought to myself, gee, that's a really good question. If you needed some question that you haven't used yet, and you're trying to mix up the test and make it different, this is a good question. Not hard, interesting, easy number to remember. Can't hurt to have it just in case. Who knows? Ceramic kilns used for hobby and non-commercial purposes. In other words, you have it in the house, in the garage, making ashtrays, vases, all of that. Shall have a maximum interior volume of 20 cubic feet. So the 20 cubic feet is just to keep it that size and no bigger. At that size, it's only going to need a certain max amount of gas, and they're comfortable with that gas supply for a residential property. You know, so ceramic kilns used for hobby and non-commercial purposes. You know, let's say at a community center, you know, you can also sign up for a pottery class. Well, they'll have a kiln. You know, it's just for hobby, you know, just for recreation. 20 cubic feet. Easy enough number to remember. Interesting enough question. Who knows? Might come in handy. Question 42. Gas-fired toilets are not approved for use in New York City. Okay? This is a strange question. Okay? I thought it was strange enough, and it's in the code. It's in the appliance chapter. Gas-fired toilet. Gas-fired toilet is, you take a bit, things go plop, and they're in the water, and you flush it, and it's connected to the sanitary or to a cesspool or whatever, to a private sewage system, cesspool, leaching field, etc., septic tank, etc. You can also have a toilet that works like an incinerator. This is going way, way back. In the 70s, before we were concerned about pollution and acid rain, we used to burn our trash. Every apartment building in the basement would have a huge furnace. And in this furnace goes all the trash. You close it, hit the button, burns it all up. Now you can imagine that you got billowing black smoke spewing out into the atmosphere, and that's why you had huge black clouds over big cities like Chicago, New York, Los Angeles. So then we decided we're not going to do that anymore. There's too much pollution, so no more furnaces. The gas-fired toilet works the same way. You're going to do your business just like you would do in a porta potty, but instead of a blue weird liquid in the bottom, it just drops to the bottom, and then when it comes time to take care of that, hit the button, boom. Incinerates all the matter down there. So a gas-fired toilet. If you haven't seen one, well, probably a good reason for that is they're not approved for use in New York City. But they are mentioned in the gas code. It's an interesting thing. Interesting enough that it's not too much to remember. No gas-fired toilets in New York City. Ceramic kilns, no bigger than 20 cubic feet. 43. Water heaters utilized for space heating shall bear an American Society of Mechanical Engineers code stamp H. The H stands for heating. So, a water heater utilized for space heating. There are these appliances that they are water heaters, they're heating water, but they're not heating water for your shower or your kitchen sink or whatever, the lavatory. They're heating water, and then that water is going to run through a hydronic system to provide heat. In that case, since it's providing space heating, the American Society of Mechanical Engineers will issue a stamp that defines that unit as a heating appliance. This unit is for heating. So hydronic boilers will get that because it's for heating. Water heaters, strictly heating water for space heating, not for domestic hot water, will get the H stamp. There are other stamps depending, but for our purposes, we're only going to worry about that. If it has anything to do with heating, it's going to bear an H stamp. The American Society of Mechanical Engineers, it's an international society. They publish the pressure vessel code. Everything we do, all the precautions we take, etc., not just for domestic, but commercial, industrial. We can go all the way up to nuclear power plants. They've written a book on it. In fact, they've written several books on it. The entire pressure vessel code looks like the Encyclopedia Britannica. It's about this big, several volumes. it looks like I said, the Encyclopedia Britannica, when we used to actually have physical encyclopedias. Everything's online now, but it's big. They're the author of that. That's their thing. The book where we get a lot of our information for the mechanical code and boilers and stuff like that, that just takes up one volume. That's just one volume in a ginormous set of volumes. So they published that. It's from them that we get everything we do when it comes to any kind of pressure vessel, a boiler, a water heater, let's see, ships, you know, any kind of boilers on ships and stuff, any kind of steam power, steam equipment, stuff we have at nuclear power plants, you know, the big smokestacks, cooling towers, stuff like that. All of that. American Society of Mechanical Engineers. Okay. I said that test 4 contained probably the hardest questions, and now we're on them. On page 47. The questions on page 47, I consider these difficult in that these are questions that are drawn from the I wouldn't say secret, but you would never think to look to these sections. You would never think to go through them. They are the very boring, very technical, very specific administrative chapters that talk about, you know, jurisdictions, liabilities, permits, filing, fees, this, that. This is the kind of stuff that is way beyond what anyone who's going for their gas card would ever be involved in. This is the stuff that is geared more towards, management, the master plumber. You know, he would be the first level to actually want to start looking at that and knowing about it. But even after him, there's so many other individuals that those particular sections are really geared towards. You go on a job, you're a journeyman, a mechanic, a helper, an apprentice. You go on the job. There's work to be done. It's got to be done by the end of the day. That's it. The boss, he's already picked out what it is you're installing. The engineers, they've already specified. The GC, they're the ones who worried about the permits, about this, about that. You got the material, you got the stuff, you know, it's either been laid out or you're going to lay it out. You put it in, it doesn't leak, that's it. We're not really concerned about, how much anything cost. If it went over this amount, we need a permit for this. If it went over that amount, we need a permit for that. Yet, I believe that these questions make their way in because they run out of questions. It's not easy to try and get 50 completely fresh questions. I would say at the very least every 6 months. You know, it seems, based on what I've been looking at, this test has been going, you know, if we add up the time where it's actually been going strong, healthy, at a regular basis, I would say we have 2-3 solid years of tests to observe, testing patterns, everything I kept getting back, what I've seen myself. I would say at the very least, they have a test for 6 months and they'll jumble the test around, the questions around. And then after that, a completely fresh new test, and those questions get jumbled around. Even then, after 2 to 3 years, it's very difficult to come up with new questions. So they start going into sections that I don't think it's right. But complain all you want, these questions are still going to be there. So What's the only other alternative? Well, now we know what the questions are, so the only thing left to do is know what the answers are to them. Okay. Question 44. Final inspection shall be performed after all work authorized by the building permit is completed. What was all work authorized? Well, let's say for the sake of a gas riser, run the riser, connect the riser, test the riser, hook up the stoves, right? That's all the work. Unless the stoves weren't part of that permit. Let's say for the sake of argument that permit was just to the outlet of the supply valve. Okay? But if we're hooking up stoves, maybe that's another permit. And final inspection occurs after all the stoves are in. Everything works. No issues. But regardless, somebody took out a permit. And that permit said, this is the work. This is the entirety of the work. Final inspections after the entirety of the work is completed. Question 45. The final inspection of gas piping systems shall be performed by the Department of Buildings in the presence of the... Okay. The answer is any of the above. Not all of the above, but any of the above. So let's see who are eligible to be there with the Department of Buildings for the final inspection. Department holder can be there. The registered design professional of record. If this is a new installation, the engineer who drew it up, he can be there. The superintendent of construction can be there. The GC. Okay, maybe the only work done was plumbing. So the plumber would be there. But more often than not, plumbing is just a part of a new work, a renovation work. So you'll have a general contractor and then the electrician, the plumber, the carpenter, the mason, they all work under him. So the superintendent of construction, the GC, the registered design professional, the engineer who drew up the plans, the permit holder, whoever went and stood in line for those papers and paid all the fees, the permit holder. Any one of those three. All those three too if you want, but at least any one of those three will be there at the final inspection. 46. A permit is not required for ordinary plumbing work, such as the replacement of flexible gas tubing no greater than... I think we beat this one almost as much as we beat the 6 foot, no more than 4 feet in length. And yeah, of course, it's going to be located downstream of the existing gas cock to an appliance, provided such gas tubing does not penetrate a wall. But we knew that whenever we have an appliance shut-off valve, everything that has to do with the appliance is downstream of that, and the union and the hard piping for, say, a water heater or boiler, or the flexible connector for range, it's going to be in the same room. Everything in the same room. Within 6 feet. Measure along the center line. This question here is only asking about, well, what do we need the permit for when it's a flexible connector? The flexible connector is longer than 4 feet. And I mentioned, I researched it, and yes, you can get a 4-foot connector. They exist, so you can get exactly 4 feet if that's what you want to do. 47. All right, these next questions, pay close attention. These numbers, first of all, these questions, they have been on there, and these numbers, guys have come back bitching and moaning, and I totally agree with them. Why do we need to know this? We're not the master plumber. We're not the owner. But they've come back, and there's a few numbers. There's at least there's a few numbers. One of them is money. So let's talk about money. I told you that ordinary minor alterations, ordinary repairs, right? But then we have limited plumbing alteration. The total cost of a Category 1 limited plumbing alteration to a fuel gas piping system cannot exceed $35,000 in any 12-month period. Okay. Category 1 is the lowest category.